Today we have something a little different for you. Over the next several weeks, we will be showcasing our top 5 episodes of all time. Enjoy the episode and be sure to join us next week to hear the rest.
You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right, this is Daniel Barrett, and I am here with Ryan Dixon from REI Print Mail.com. Ryan, how are you?
Oh, good. Daniel, how are you?
I am so good. I know we were just talking about, like, we sat down to do the call. We were both like, it's been a long day. And, but it's good timing to do an interview like this. It tends to bring my energy level back up. So I'm psyched to talk with you. Let's kind of start. I want to start with REI Print Mail, actually, because usually I kind of get into like you specifically, and I want to talk about that. But before we do that, let's talk about what REI Print Mail is, what you do. For people that aren't, familiar with the company, what is REI Print Mail? What do you guys do for investors?
So we are a 28-year print and marketing company that for about 15 of those years, we have specialized in the real estate investment industry. And so what we do is we primarily create innovative direct mail to get buyers and sellers for real estate investors. We do a host of other things, but that's our primary focus. And then probably our main claim to fame is that we employ a series of direct marketing coaches. So we decided a long time ago that if we gave people advice and took the guesswork out of direct mail, and we used our expertise we're in markets all across the United States, and we send millions of pieces of mail. We see response rates, we track results. So if we start using that to help people make good decisions, they're going to get more deals. And if they get more deals, then they're going to stay with us longer. And if they stay with us longer, then we're going to create a fantastic business and everybody wins. And so our main claim to fame, besides just doing direct mail, is coaching people in best practices and preferred pieces and consistencies that kind of give them an edge against the competition. And so since then, we've grown by leaps and bounds, and people love it, and it works all around. But that's our main idea, is to just get our investors deals.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things I want to dig into there for sure. But I thought one of the things that I thought was so cool is like you guys take a very similar approach to we do, in the sense that by specializing in a certain industry, you can see what works across many different markets and many different situations. I think that's a real superpower. I'm curious about the direct marketing coaches. So like there's a lot of companies that do direct mail. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm an investor and I'm curious about mail, or I'm coming to you guys to do my mail, how does the coach fit into that? Are they like telling me what to mail or who to mail to, or pick a list, or like what role does the coach kind of fill?
Well, yeah. So we can do all of the above, really. So it depends on what stage the investor's at. So they can come to us and say, look, and a lot of people do. They say, look, I just want to make the phone ring. I don't know what to do.
Right.
And you're supposed to help me. So help me. And we say, okay, well, let's talk about what lists we see working the best in your area. And so we can help them actually build the list. We can sell them a list. So we do sell data. A lot of people bring us lists and they say, do you know this list source or that list source or these people? And we say, yeah, we've worked with all kinds. So we can help them build a list in their own list source, whatever they're using, by going over preferred filters. And then, a lot of times, we say, okay, well, let's talk about the market you're going to be in. And so if you're in, a highly saturated market and you say, well, and what's your budget? Well, I want to send somewhere around 500 pieces. And we say, well, that's not very safe. That's actually kind of dangerous. And so we give them advice along those lines. And we really work it backwards So where do we come into play? A lot of times we come into play at the list section. We come into play at quantity. And then definitely, absolutely, we come into play when it's, hey, what pieces work best in my area? And we see different fluctuations. During COVID, we have a fake check mail piece, right? And that became popular. We started to see it getting ordered in small quantities all around the United States. And I reached out to a few people. I said, why the fake check? And they said, well, we thought it would be smart because people were expecting COVID checks. And we thought, well, that's genius. And so then we went to some of our big mail buyers and we said, hey, send some of these pieces out. We're going to pay for it. We just want to see what the response is. And so then we saw the response was pretty fantastic. It was also incredibly aggressive. So this took a special kind of investor, but there's an example of how we might pivot, right? During when the marketing winds change. And so with the COVID, what happened was handwritten fonts started to come back and fake checks started becoming the more aggressive piece that you wanted to send, whereas that definitely was not the case 6 months prior. But so we definitely come in there at the point where we're recommending a piece, but it really depends on where you're at. We can really help it from start to finish.
Yeah, I'm curious I have a couple of questions that I want to dig into, but as a general rule, what do you think most investors are confused on when it comes to mail? Are they primarily confused about, hey, what kind of creative should I be using? Like what should my postcards look like? What should the font look like? Should it be a yellow letter? Should it be this or should it be that? Or are they primarily worried about or confused on the list in the sense of like, who am I singling out? Who am I targeting? How many times do I mail them? Like, what seems to be the sticking point for the average investor kind of coming in the door?
Yeah, really good question. Probably mimics a lot of what your industry does. With us, we call it quantity, right? So they don't, a lot of people, even if they mailed 10 years ago and they come back, the amount of quantity that they need to send in their area usually has changed substantially. And when you see things like that happened in Phoenix and North Carolina right now, and California and LA County and Riverside and Texas and Austin and all those places that are really saturated, within inside of a year or two or three, they became so saturated that the bar for entry became higher. So when you talk to a client, probably the biggest whoa or aha moment is how many pieces per deal we see it takes to get in that market, right? How many pieces you have to send to get X amount of phone calls. And of those X amount of phone calls, we usually see a deal or two. When we tell them those amounts, that's usually the holy cow moment. I had no idea. And then you talk to weathered investors and they say, yeah, I kind of figured that, right? Because they didn't know. And then we validated that point for them that this is what, so now we can attack it from a math and a probability standpoint, which is what we like to do. And so that's probably the main thing that they're confused about. The second thing I would say is, yes, the design. You have a lot of investors and a lot of savvy business people out there who think that creating a design is the best way to go. Again, probably mimicking your industry. You've given us a lot of advice, on web pages and what needs to go where and those kinds of things. Well, we have tested templates, tested mail pieces. And so when someone comes in and goes, well, I really like your mail pieces. Yeah, but I want to create my own and I think it's going to do better. And it completely flops. That happens more so than not 99% of the time. Why? It's untested. We've got to change some verbiage around. We got to spend money to test. That's what we have to do. Nothing worth keeping ever came easy. And that's including your postcard design. So we had to spend money to figure out which pieces to put on our site. We had to partner up with our customers and say, try this, try that. And when we usually release, we try to do 3 designs every quarter. Yeah. So that we're at least releasing a design a month by the end of the year, once a month. The thing is, those take a lot of testing, and some of them don't last very long, and then some of them stand the test of time for many years. So that's probably the second thing, thinking that you can just come at this thing and I know what to do, and I'm going to go ahead and make this awesome design, and it's going to work better than anything else. And I don't understand it. I didn't get any phone calls. Right. That's probably the second thing.
I'm curious if you see, I always say that when I first moved into REI, it was an incredibly painful process for me as a designer because I'd come from web design and I like design. I would never call myself a great designer, but I like nice design. And I used to like read design blogs and all this stuff.
Right.
And when I came into REI, I was very, I won't say cocky, let's just say irrationally self-confident that I was like, well, I'm going to design a beautiful landing page for this. And over again, I would just be like, the ugliest possible version of the thing I built is the one that wins. It's like always it was very, very painful. I'm curious if that's kind of the case in direct mail. Do you notice a trend, or not a trend, but more of a pattern where the more like quote unquote designy something is and the kind of nicer it looks, the worse it does? Is that consistent in mail or not so much?
Yeah, it's been that way for a lot of years that the uglier thing works better in this industry. And when I was doing mail for myself in the past, I kind of figured that out on my own. When I came here, when I was kind of resetting my real estate business, and this was a perfect opportunity for me, I kind of sat back and started looking at what was working. And I'm like, holy cow, it's like that everywhere. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
The ugliest thing works. And, I have a theory about it, and I don't, and it's probably wrong. But, when you look at the people that are receiving these advertisements and they're reacting to them, they're in a totally different state of mind. They have what could be considered one of their most precious assets. And they're most of the time they're in hard times, and hard times breed, different thoughts in the brain. And we've got different outlooks on life. And the other thing is that it really, when uglier designs tend to maybe just work better because the people that are selling their house don't think that you're some big old company either.
Right.
Because a lot of times they want to relate, right? But then too, the success comes out of it because those are the kinds of people that you can actually, if they don't think you're a huge company, you can get a better deal on the house and you can make more money. So just maybe those kind of float to the top as, hey, those are the ones we talk about the most because they work the best.
Right.
So, there's different mindsets there, but I think it definitely has something to do with it, but I definitely see what you're talking about. And yeah, I think it's industry wide. I do.
My theory, you said my theory, which is, I was like, who are you going to get a better deal out of? Bob down the street or, hyper mega global corp investment fund, hedge fund or whatever. Yeah, I love that. That's really fascinating to me. I am really curious. Let's talk about you a little bit, because you mentioned your investment business kind of before you came into REI Print Mail. So what was your way into real estate investing? Because investing, I always say, is like, it's a weird corner of the world.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like something that most people don't know it exists. I mean, I don't know if that's the case anymore, but it's like, used to be like not many people even knew about it. So what was your entryway into the industry? Just in general.
And, and real quick on that, still, we as investors at this little group, this little corner of the world, as you call it, we after you're in it for a while, you think everybody knows about it. You think everybody is up to date on it, and you talk to only investors and everyone knows everybody. And it's kind of a small world. And then when you talk to your uncle or your mom or your dad, or you talk to someone and you're like, no, I'm a wholesaler. And they're like, you do what? Is that even legal? Is that, can you do that? I mean,
yeah.
And so really, I think we think sometimes that we're now kind of mainstream and we're not even close. But anyway, how I got in, I owned 4 convenience stores in St. Louis, Missouri, where my real estate business is based, Jameson Home Buyers. And I was doing real estate off and on, and I did awful in the convenience store space. One, it's just an awful business. The margins were really low. I got robbed a few times at gunpoint. I didn't like that. And I just started to absolutely despise it. And I didn't get in because I liked it. I got in because I had an opportunity to get in, which I'll never do again. Only do something that you love and that you're passionate about, because that's going to allow you to have a great life. It's like being on vacation and you actually make money when you don't chase it. And so I ended up selling out 2 of the stores. I consolidated it down to 2 stores. I sold out 2 of the stores. I got out alive, and I was looking for stuff to do, and I was sending mail, and this was the company that I used. And so I came here. I had a discussion with the president and the VP of sales, Mike Acton, and they said, why don't you come here? You've got the knowledge, and why don't you teach people how to do mail? And we've got this new concept. And I said, you can't afford me. And then they proved me wrong. And then it was absolutely fantastic. I got to talk real estate every single day. I was like, this is so much fun. I get to talk to people every day about what I love, about what I enjoy. I know this, so I can definitely help them. I've been at the place where I'm talking to a client and they're telling me that their spirit has been killed and they haven't got an idea or a deal for 3 or 4 months. And I say, listen, I've been there, do this. Or I tell them a story about when it happened to me and this is what you should try to do. And I realized this is perfect. I love, love, love this. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, when I came on, I said, guys, I've got a real estate business. I'm going to be working my real estate business. And they said, absolutely. No, we want you to. We want you to. In fact, can you test stuff for us? Can you test this? Can you test that? And we want to know what works because we truly want to help these clients get deals. And I said, then I'm on board. And I was kind of a one-man show in my real estate kind of at the beginning of that. And one of the things that I realized is that when I came here and I started, it was known that I was pretty good at what I was doing. People started coming and asking me to do marketing for them. And I realized pretty quickly out of all the local people, I could have my pick of the litter of some of the best partners in St. Louis, because they were coming to me and asking me to do mail for them. And I landed on a fantastic partner. His name is Brian. He's been doing it 18 years. We get along great. We're kind of the yin and the yang thing going on. Mm-hmm. He goes feet on the ground and goes into the homes. I help with disposition and all the marketing and the VAs and people that are calling and answering calls and things like that. So we have this fantastic balance. And then that just grew. And I got to say that just everything really came together for me then. And I realized it was because it was my passion. I mean, when I was 13, I bought Carlton sheets with my allowance money.
Yeah.
And, he was the original guru.
Yep.
And now I share it. Now, this is kind of, whatever 10 degrees apart or whatever the saying is. But now I share a stage a few times a year with Lou Brown, who's been in the business 42 years. We're great friends. And he has shared many times a stage with Carlton sheets, which just, it blows my mind. And it's so cool. But that was kind of my journey. I got in. I actually did 2 fix and flips. I lost. I'm a horrible fix and flipper. I'm actually going to I'm going to pay a coach this year.
Right.
And I'm talking to his name is Tim Grimm, and he's a fantastic guy local here. Again, one of my clients.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay a coach to actually learn how to do fix and flip correctly because I lost my tail on it twice. But then I realized I was a fantastic wholesaler. And so that was kind of my road. Got out of the liquor store business, came here, and really it all just came together for me. And now I'm really looking forward to the next, 30 years. I'm really excited.
That's so excited. It's so exciting, man. It's like you found a way to put yourself at the middle, in many ways, sort of at the center of the industry, right? Which is awesome.
Want to find motivated seller leads online, but don't know where to start? Download our free Motivated Seller Keyword Report today. AdWords nerds have spent over $5 million this year researching the most profitable keywords for finding motivated seller leads. And you can grab these exact keywords when you download our report at www.adwordsnerds.com/keywords.
I am super curious. So obviously you guys are a mail company, print company, right? You're sort of rooted in physical space. I'm rooted in the digital space, but I've always been a big fan of direct mail. I got my start in marketing listening to guys like Dan Kennedy, who were all direct mail marketers, what they did, right? I started off like writing sales letters. And then I was like, why am I doing this? I'm never mailing anybody, but that's what this tape said to do.
Yeah.
So I have a real soft spot in my heart for it. And for the longest time, I was always like, well, direct mail is in decline because mail volume is in decline and yada, yada, yada. What's really fascinating to me was about a year and a half ago, I noticed that all the most advanced digital marketers that I knew, so the people that were, let's say 4 years ago, were all about webinars, all about Facebook, all blah blah. They all started sending direct mail stuff. They started sending direct mail newsletters, or they're sending stuff in the mail. And I was like, that's really interesting. Like, and so my friend Nick, who's an incredible marketer, again, is like one of the guys that I look to and I ask advice of, and typically is very ahead of the curve. I asked him, I was like, hey, you're sending me letters literally every month. He's sending like a whole, like a packet of like stuff. Right. And I was like, what's the deal with this? And he was like, email's too crowded. Nobody reads their email. But now everyone reads the mail because everyone else isn't sending mail. So now mail is the place where everybody wants to be. And I was like, oh, that makes total sense, right? So I'm super curious, like backing up, like REI direct mail has been such a core part of our business model forever. And I don't think it's going anywhere. But I'm curious, if you back up and you look at nationally, you look at the mail ecosystem, you look at like the role that mail plays in the lives of average people. I'm curious, like what you think the next 5, 10, 15 years is going to look like, because I don't have any sense of what that industry, how it runs, or like what the long-term trends are. I'm just so curious, like what you guys see and what you think about where it's going.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you're right. A lot of not excluding one, I don't think. Every podcast, every Zoom call I've been on that has to do with one of the, I probably represent about 20 coaches and mainstream coaches in the industry and their students to help them do mail. They always ask that question, right? Is mail dead? And, and most of them are mailing with me. And I go, well, no, absolutely not. It's quite the opposite. Absolutely. We're on the uptick right now. So the way that I see it is, marketing lives in silos, right? And so you've got your digital marketing. we had text is still kind of there. You've got, RVM kind of came and wentish. And then, you've got more labor intensive bandit signs and things like that. Well, and cold calling, of course. Well, when about 3-4 years ago, the cold calling kind of hit a peak, RVM hit a peak, texting hit a peak. Of course, when you hit a peak, you've got things like lawyers coming out of the woodwork crying, unsolicited text messages. Everybody started hearing things about it. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is when these silos get filled up, then it just pours. People start to pour out of the top. And the people that were in the silo first kind of rise to the top. And then they jump ship into the next silo and they ride that train for a while. Mail, however, because it is always going to have a base effectiveness, no matter what, because we're buying the thing that's attached to the mailbox, right? So it's not like you're going to get it wrong. You're going to send them a letter. They can either open it or not, but generally you're going to get around 1% of them to raise their hand. Well, 0.5% right now industry-wide because we have a lot of saturated markets, but still the thing that we're buying is attached to the mailbox. So how direct can you get it? It's right there. And so when those silos started to overflow, we started to see a lot of the heavy mailers, the ones that were sending, 20, 40, 50, 100,000 pieces a month, come back and say things like, well, sorry I left. Can I get my same pricing? How are things looking? We had a great relationship. I took a hiatus. I'm back and I love you. And then, of course, as a company, we were like, open arms. Absolutely. Come back. And so we didn't see a dip. We've never seen a dip, though, because the cool thing about mail and the place that it does hold is that it is a bit of a low bar for entry for inbound leads. And so inbound leads, if you pay someone to go out and put bandit signs out, they're not going to do it for too long, or you're going to do it and you're not going to do it consistently. It's not fun, right? It's snowing here in St. Louis today. I'm not going to run around and put out bandit signs. Mm-hmm. I'd rather automate it. So when we're talking inbound leads, people that call you, we had to go through a lot, right? They had to look at the mail piece, decide that they have a need, read the name, read the phone number, pull out their phone, dial the number, wait for it. And in some cases, get a call back after that. They went through a lot to reach out. And so, I think for inbound leads, it's really the low bar for entry. And an inbound lead is the best type of lead. As you said, we share a lot of top tier clients. They use you and they like the inbound leads. So when they do the pay-per-click and things like that, and it works out well for them, and then they also blanket mail, then they get a whole bunch of inbound leads. And to them, they can convert them better and convert them more. Well, the person that doesn't have the budget to do a bunch of mail or a bunch of digital marketing and things like that, if they have $500, $1,000 a month, they can get into some pretty serious inbound leads that'll generally get them a deal inside of 90 days, depending on the market. And that's going to fluctuate. And that's something we would talk about if somebody called. But that's the point, is that it's a pretty low bar for entry. And really, what else are you going to do to get a quality inbound lead that's going to be cheaper than that? So because of that, we were always getting people that were new. And then we were getting more and more and more and more of them, because there's more coaches, more people saying that you can, this is a great industry. They're bringing more people into the industry. And then at the same time, all of the heavy hitters really started coming back.
Yeah.
And so then we saw explosive growth in our business, especially over the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fascinating, the cycles that things go through. And you're kind of hitting on another point too, which I think is super important, which is, it's like there are a ton of different ways to do deals in real estate investing, right? Down to literally walking up to people's houses and knocking on their doors.
Right.
And it's like, there's the thing that bugs me is people who kind of expect someone to say like, oh, well, this way is the best way, or it's the only way, or whatever.
Right.
Like, the most you ever really know is, hey, this worked for me. And I'm just a huge believer in, like, if everybody in your market's do something different, even if it's just, down to the postcard that you send out, you do a big pattern interrupt, like just a giant, tight close up of a sweaty face, and just mail that to people. I mean, that's official REI Print Mail advice, by the way. Mailing sweaty faces to people. So yeah, I think that's all super fascinating to me. I am curious, for REI Print Mail as a company, when you guys look at what you guys are interested in or investing in kind of longer term, what is that for you guys? Like, what do you guys view as the future of what REI Print Mail does? Is it we're just going to keep doing the same stuff, but we're going to do it better? Is it we are, kind of trying to innovate in some way? I'm really curious about this industry and kind of like where you guys see your particular competitive advantage being.
Yeah. So, well, we were the original innovators of the industry. Everybody kind of followed behind us, and they know it. Basically, what happened was we invented the Street View mailer, the using the Google image on the postcard. We invented that, and then people followed behind us pretty quickly because we couldn't patent that. Then we created a AccuText function, or we call it reverse texting. And that's where you put a short code on a card. And if people choose to type in that short code, the investor gets an email with their first name, last name, property address, mailing address, and cell phone number that they just captured, while the prospect gets a personalized text message. This is kind of seen, I'm not an attorney, we're not attorneys, but it's kind of seen as a legal opt-in, because they have a specific short code that they texted on the card. Pretty obvious that they wanted to get talked to or opt in. And so we created that. Probably right now, 75-80% of our clients use that. And so that is a lockout for us. We see that as kind of the last big thing that we created. Now what we're going into now is really just doing mail better, getting more information, and really being innovative on the new pieces. We're getting ready to launch a bunch of new design pieces that we've been testing. We're really excited about. We're getting ready to really focus and dig deep on probate, because we see a lot of the heavy hitters are revolving around probate, and we think that that's an important aspect. So we're going to be doing some great things with that. And just really leveraging, we haven't completely leveraged all of our data that we have. We have so many clients, thousands and thousands of clients right now, and we need to really leverage that data. And so as we move forward here, we want to be able to have a one-stop shop, even a one-off mail situation where if you just want to mail the place down the street, or if you want to mail 5 or 10 or 15 pieces a month because you're licking stamps at home and you don't want to do that. We want to be able to be the solution for that. So we think by technology, we're going to be able to do all those things, but we're kind of just taking baby steps in that direction. But all of it focuses around doing mail better and using our all of our information that we have at hand to get better results, and then create tools as we see the need happen. And we're always first to the table. We almost always beat everybody to the punch on these kinds of things. We're a decent sized company. We can move quickly. And the thing is that we also have a fantastic group of people here. So that made innovation really, really easy. And I'll just, to speak to that point, Jeff Charlton, the owner of the company, he bought 18 companies over the past 10 years. And what we found out by buying these failing companies is that when you have a failing company, you get down to your best 2 or 3 people. And when you get down to your best 2 or 3 people and your company gets bought, and we take those fantastic people that have been at that company forever and has been loyal to it, and we bring them here and introduce them to a much bigger family of those people who've been loyal and they were the best of the best in their little business, that you create something incredibly special, something that you really can't put a dollar amount to, something that allows you to innovate very quickly. And there's so much passion for helping people do better, get more deals, make the phone ring, that kind of thing. And that's really what we got here. And so it's pretty dynamic. It makes for a fun day at work. And at the same time, I've never worked around more intelligent people than I am right now.
That's so cool. I think it's such a fun feeling to be around people that are excited and interesting and like you guys are working on something kind of all together. I'm super, super, super excited for you guys. And if you are listening to this right now and you have not checked out REI Print Mail, you should. You can go right to reiprintmail.com, or you can check the show notes for this episode. We'll put a bunch of links there, including a link to get a free consultation on a strategy for your market with Ryan. I'm going to put the link to that at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. You can go there and check that out. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I was really excited to talk with you, and you really delivered. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me, buddy. We will talk more soon.
Absolutely.
This is the podcastfactory.com.